This is the Kia Syros, and it seems the only goal of this car is to be different than everything else in this world, at least this part of the world. And in this video, I'm going to talk about how this car is unlike any other Kia we have seen before. I'm also going to talk about most of the things that I like and some which I don't. Now, we have also done a mileage test of this diesel automatic version, so I'm going to talk about that as well. So make sure you hang around till the end. My name is Sagar, and you're watching CarWale. First up, it's the way the Syros looks. Now, it's unlike any Kia that you have seen before. And from the very first glance, it is pretty much clear that Kia didn't want to evolve an existing design. It's like they locked up the designers in a room and said, make something which doesn't look like a Seltos or a Sonnet at all. Clearly, the designers were happy to oblige because the Syros doesn't look like any of its siblings. It's got its own visual identity. Now, I know it looks a bit boxy and the design is a bit polarizing, but trust me on this look will grow on you. Just give it some time. Inside, it's all over function over form. Everything has a purpose here, and yet nothing feels clinical. Of course, the cabin is also a far cry from what we have seen in other Kia models. The dash looks nice and fresh, and other than a few buttons, there is nothing in here that will remind you of the Sonnet or the Seltos. The cabin is extremely functional and user friendly. I mean, there are no unnecessary design touches anywhere in this interior. The user interface on this main touchscreen display doesn't overcomplicate anything. But the best part is you get physical buttons for everything, be it music, drive modes, AC, you name it. As for the rest, I like the sense of space that this cabin has to offer. So it's got this huge glass area, and also the distance between me and the edge of the front windscreen is quite a bit. At least to me, it feels like I am sitting in a car which is from a segment above simply because of the amount of space there is inside this cabin and how airy it feels. I also like how the steering wheel, it's not round at all. I like the huge size of these sun visors. These work really well, by the way. I also like how the gear lever moves, the dual purpose nature of the USB ports, and finally the audio quality from the 8 speaker Harman Kardon sound system. The Syros' cabin is far from perfect though. For starters, the seat base on the front seats, well, they are lacking in terms of under thigh support. They could have been a bit longer. And while we are at it, the driver's seat is electrically adjustable, but you can only adjust the backrest and you can move the seat front and back electrically. But if you want to raise the seat or lower it, you will have to use a good old lever and do it manually. Speaking of adjustability, the steering column is only height adjustable and cannot be moved for reach. The feature set in general is exhaustive though, and the only thing that I think this car is missing is rain sensing wipers. Another area where the Syros is different from other Kias, especially the Sonnet, is the space in the second row. Now, clearly, there is a significant amount of space in the second row. It's way more than the Sonnet. And like in the front of this car, the sense of space is also really good. In fact, it's even better here because of this huge panoramic sunroof, which lets in a lot of light and makes this cabin feel really airy. The Syros continues to be extremely functional here in the second row. Of course, you have a rear armrest with cup holders. You also have AC vents and a couple of charging ports. But the Syros has so much more to offer. For starters, you get sun blinds for your rear windows. You also get recline function for the backrest, and you also get ventilation for the rear seats, even though it's only for the seat base and not the backrest. But that's not the best part. The best part is the fact that this seat, well, it's on rails, so you can slide it back and forth and use it to your advantage in case you have luggage at the back, so you can move it forward and create more space for luggage. And in case you don't have anything at the back, you can slide it all the way back and liberate more legroom. So what's the catch here? Well, the only thing that bothers me is that the ventilation function for the rear seat is only for the seat base and not the backrest. Now, I think that's not going to be very useful because in general, when it's hot outside, it's generally your back which requires ventilation and not your thighs. So I'm not sure whether this feature is going to be extremely useful. On the road, the Syros does feel a bit different than the Sonnet or the Seltos, even though it gets the same set of engine and gearbox options. This right here is the diesel automatic version, which is powered by a 1.5-liter turbo diesel engine with around 114 bhp of power and 250 Newton meters of torque. As for the driving experience, the Syros feels effortless for the most part. The steering is light and responsive, the car itself isn't too big, and all the tech in here, including drive modes and ADAS, especially blind spot monitoring with visuals on the speedometer, well, it makes driving in traffic much easier. The 6-speed torque converter automatic gearbox complements the diesel engine quite nicely, offering smooth gear shifts. Its behavior is similar to other Kia models. What's noticeably different though is the ride quality on the Syros. Let me explain. Unlike the Sonnet and the Seltos, the suspension is softly sprung, and overall the setup is such that it gives you a nice and cushy ride at slow to medium speeds. In general, the Syros it feels very refined over bad roads. You don't hear the suspension working as much. The ride is quite pliant, and it doesn't crash over sharp-edged potholes or multi-layered surfaces and sharp ruts like the Sonnet or the Seltos. In those two cars, there is that underlying firmness that keeps you connected to the road, but in here, the setup is much softer and that is reflected in the real world. Once you up the pace and add some speed into the mix, well, the Syros begins to feel ever so slightly floaty. There is that constant up and down movement over long undulations. Mind you, it's not a very obvious motion. It's very minimal, but let me tell you, it's still there when you are cruising at a good pace and there are long undulations on the road. Well, that's when you get that vertical movement. And this behavior of the Syros is more noticeable when you have 3 to 4 people in the car with you. In our mileage test, the Syros diesel automatic covered 11.3 kilometers on a liter, while the indicated mileage on the display showed 11.9 kmpl. On the highway, the car managed 15.38 kilometers per liter, whereas the MID indicated 16.1 kmpl. As per our testing, the overall mileage for the Syros comes to around 12.3 kilometers per liter, although that figure would certainly vary based on your exact usage pattern. All things considered, the Syros is a pleasant departure from what we have come to expect from Kia. Now, I know it isn't exactly a good looking car and it is a bit too softly sprung for high speed comfort. But there is no denying that the Syros is extremely functional and more daring than any other car in its class. To me, this feels less like an extension of the SUV slash crossover formula and more like a reinvention of the large hatchback. And I mean that in a good way. Now, whether that excites or alienates buyers will depend entirely on how they perceive Kia as a brand. But as a product, the Syros is really impressive, and for what it's meant to do, it's a solid 8 on 10. Let us know in the comments what do you think of the Kia Syros, and I'll see you in the next video.